Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Spark of Genius Flesh and Blood production. And I'm joined by my co-creator, co-commentator, co-caster, co-compatriot Rob on the
Hello.
bottom. And it's this is the season. It's tier list season. I mean,
This the season.
we didn't we didn't do one for roads because like you can't really do one with a straight face for roads and pretend you actually know where these heroes are going to land. At
Right.
this point of recording, so we're recording what, fifth or so. So Pro Tour
Yes.
is about 2 weeks away. So I don't think the results are going to differ all too much to really sway opinions on any general consensus on any of the matchups or the hero strength before then. There is no ban list coming out before Pro Tour, so it's kind of like what you see is what you get. We're going to try our best to, you know, shove these faces onto a tier list. Of course, I will put my disclaimers I usually do. These are based on whatever opinions, experiences, and or other facts we were able to get
It's
to
also
assess these
getting
heroes.
increasingly more difficult to do these just by just like sheer
Yes.
volume of heroes entering the
Yes.
entering the game. It's
It is
like
the
this kind of Venn diagram, or not even Venn diagram. This
yeah.
graph is
No.
getting like much more
Like
complicated.
five circles, like 6 circles or something
Hmm.
at this particular point. But
Yeah.
this is the open meta that people have been craving, I guess. Now
Yeah.
it's interesting because I think the more open a meta is, the worse it is for like a pro tour setting or like a more competitive
Yeah.
setting, and the better it is for the casual slash lower level event, like lower tier event, like
Hmm.
Rhodes season.
Hmm.
So this is going to be like the first kind of big event, big pro tour without like a single kind of very hard to dispute slash undisputed strongest deck. Because beforehand we had decks like Lexi, we had
Yeah.
decks like Oldhim, we had Prism, we had Starvo. Like
Draw
each one of these
my.
like yeah, draw like we had these really, really top tier that you really couldn't argue that these two or three decks, sometimes one deck, just were just the best deck, and you either played it or you played something that countered it, right? This is far from that, and this will kind of be a testament to a bit of gem luck combined with just like how well they
Player
are on their
skill.
specific hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, very skill dependent meta with a lot of nice dash of gems. So with that being said, I guess we can you want to we can go alphabetical, but I feel like it's might be better to set up S, and we might
Sure.
want to go like set up a couple S
Yeah.
A first, and then do everyone based on
That's a
that.
good way to do it, actually,
Um,
because that
just to
is
set the
basically
bar.
how a tier list works, right? You have the main heroes that are like best in class, and then you
Everyone
have everyone
surrounds them.
else
Yeah,
and how they, are they good into those heroes? Are they bad into those heroes? And that's how you're going to define really how the hero sits.
yep,
So, yeah, let's go through this list
yep.
and figure out who's an S tier. So, maybe I'll let you pick. You probably have a better, your ear to the ground more than I do. So, let's go through the S
Yeah,
and A heroes first.
yeah. I think in general there are two to three heroes that are not big diff, but definitely have been seeing a lot more wins, especially picking up in later roads and more results. I think the first one's Victor,
Mm,
Victor Goldman, and
yeah.
especially in the latest kind of roads pieces here. Now, when you look at Guardian in a nutshell, obviously Guardian has a pretty good track record of these big events. Specifically, like Oldhim, Bravo's been doing pretty well. The key with Guardian is a lot of the times he's so I should say Betsy's in the mix here too, but Guardian is just so flexible with their builds, and they have such a strong base of cards because these heroes have been they're in a class that's been out for so long. So you
One
have
of the
such a
first
good
classes.
base. One of the first classes, you got to like take advantage of a lot of really good statted cards, like all these Everfest Guardian cards and things like that. Really, really spoiled for choice when building your deck as well. Guardian got the new arm piece, which is just a pure. It's not a very exciting upgrade, but it's still very much an upgrade over Crater Fist. You're running Civic Steps. Victor's got the additional shield that
Hmm.
he's able to run, the Victor specialization, got Golden Sun. And I think the reason Victor is S tier is a couple reasons. It's not that he has like a bunch of fantastic, like every matchup's fantastic. It's actually a little bit more on the polarizing side. However, I feel like one, this deck is quite easy to play, relatively speaking, as far as a Guardian point of view, and just in the overall meta when you're looking at like how to play your deck to the highest level. Victor's hero ability is super easy. The gold you draw, like it's just super easy to understand. It's not that hard to practice. There's some variations with the deck, but really it just kind of rewards having a strategy and then
Hmm.
picking your spots and seeing like what you're willing to give up percentage points in the separate matchups. He's also just a very powerful deck. The ability to have a very big fridge because of your shield, right? Because you're rocking two on the
Hmm.
shield. You could run Balance of Justice to counter things like Art of War and Blood Rush Bellows and Tome. Sorry, yeah, the Imperial Flame.
Imperial
Imperial
Flame. Yeah.
Flame? Yeah, yeah, the
The Dromai
Dromai.
one. Mm.
Yeah, so you're able to like use that and Civic Steps. Obviously, you still get you're rocking with a lot of armor. You can run Tunic. You can be a little bit more aggressive. He's also able to just run a bunch of very, very good value hands. Like if you run Tunic or you draw the gold, or if you're on Seismic even or gain Vigors, running 4 power 8s with on hits is really strong, believe
Hmm.
it or not. It's just a very, very good value game.
Yep.
And I think with the addition of cards like Pulverize and Golden Sun, you have like some pretty good clash equity, and you're able to get a lot of good value off your 4 block clashes and as well as your good trounce value, right? And I think that's
Mm.
a key factor in enabling him to win a lot of matchups is getting good value off those cards. And so as far as like a value oriented deck, I think Victor is just probably the
Cool.
best, one of the best, if not the best one. So I
Yeah.
think I'd like to put him in S tier as our
Sounds
first
good.
one.
And we've seen some results with Victor.
Yes.
A lot of RTNs I think are seeing some Victor
Victor's
wins.
picking
Yeah.
up. Yep, Victor's picking up. And yeah, just like ease of use and just good flexibility over the matchups. And I think he can do well into like a lot of these matchups, other than maybe like Kano's not going to be fun. But there's a lot of
Hmm.
like pretty good matchups that you can have here, especially Ninja and things like that, right? So
Yeah.
and Azalea for that matter, like that's going to be quite fun and Dory. So he's got a lot of very good matchups for decks that can pop up, right?
Hmm.
So the second deck I think we're going to put here, and you kind of alluded to this one. I'm
Hmm.
gonna put Dromai up here.
Dromai. Yeah.
It's funny because beginning of the meta, Dromai is always so question mark. She's such a polarizing hero. Especially Illusion is just a polarizing class. People either think they're like big diff or they're like something just pushed them out, like aggro pushed them out of the
Right.
meta or
They're
whatever.
walking a fine line, it seems.
They really are, right? And obviously, Numenarus has come out for the new Prism, but we're
Right.
talking solely on the Dromai here. I mean, she didn't really get anything, but she didn't lose anything either. And the meta kind of revolves around other heroes, and Dromai just ends up coming in here and taking wins off like
Hmm.
super random matchups. So I think Dromai is just that one of those decks where you need to have a plan against Dromai, whereas Dromai doesn't necessarily need a plan against a bunch of decks.
Hmm.
Whereas every deck needs a plan into Dromai,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny. Like you can't not like this deck's gonna come up, right? So
She's the
her
litmus test, I think, of any meta.
she is one of the litmus tests, and I think
Yeah.
her power is just still there. Rake the Embers is still a stupid card.
Yeah.
She's still got like her tomes. She can still draw super well. She could still, have pretty flexible strategy. And there are some
Right.
cards that came out with her, like some of the generic cards that she can look at to help her in some of the matchups she doesn't like. But like she still has a pretty reasonable Azalea matchup. She could still do pretty well against. She could still have a strategy against the Warriors, Guardians. That Brute's a little bit awkward with Rhinar.
Yeah.
Uh, but she can. Oh, and then Teklo is cool. It's just kind of free if you see Teklo Vossen. But she definitely has a decent enough matchup spread and an overall high enough power level that
Hmm.
she deserves to be in at least A. I'm putting her in low S at the particular
Sure.
case because I think there's going to be a lot of people rocking with this deck
Yeah. I
coming into the
think
pro. I think
I think it's actually interesting because in this latest set, Heavy Hitters, you would assume that this would be kind of like the bane of, Dromai's existence, right? All these big attacks, all these poppers. And
yeah,
it turned out that shit wasn't affected that much. Like, maybe you have Reinar in there who got a bit better into her, but he was always okay into her. So it's like, Garden didn't get really much better into her. She can still smush. Basically, any of the decks that existed beforehand, none of them really got stronger into her. So
yeah.
it's a bit interesting. I just find that I thought she would have been worse, but then looking at the
Yeah,
results, she's still really good.
she started worse, but then like she still has good matchups. Like if Warrior starts creeping up, Dromai's still pretty good against a
Warrior
lot of
as
the
well.
Warriors.
Yeah.
It's a very tricky matchup. Like she can still do pretty well into dash and stuff like that. I think it's actually quite interesting. I think yeah, maybe ninjas aren't as amazing, but like there's a bunch of then you see Kasai and you're like, cool. I really like playing against Kasai, and
Hmm.
that's kind of one of the main reasons she's S because I think there are going to be a lot of Warriors, and in general,
Yeah.
I do like Dromai into like Olympia and Kasai. Dory, it's a bit of a coin flip, but still you could
That's
still do
the
very
one I
well
was
into that
kind of
matchup
questioning
also.
too. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you have a battle plan. I think into any of these decks, like your deck is just so
Mhm.
flexible that even though you don't need to have a plan as Dromai, you can craft a plan because you're just so good into everything else. It's like okay, I can focus a few cards to be better into a Dromai or something, or into a Dory or something like that.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Cool. Yeah.
The
So.
last spot is kind of funny. There are two decks that are neck and neck for me, and I it's between KO and Dory for me for like the last
Mhm.
S slot. I think for the
Actually,
purpose of this
I
tier
will
list,
say that it's kind of rare for us to have three in S, so we will likely bump one lower to high A.
yeah, there's too many
Uh,
heroes because there's
yeah.
so many heroes that were added.
So how about let's
Um,
put them both in A for now, and maybe you can tell me which one's the better A. We'll go with that.
yeah, we could put we can kind of start with KO. I think KO
Okay.
as at the very least, I think he's top of A, if not S.
Okay.
Um, Specifically, KO is here not necessarily because of his matchup spread, but because of the raw power of this deck. Castbone, like Yuki kind of showed it off at Battleharden.
Yeah.
To be fair, the set came out, nobody really knew what any of the cards did. But I think the decks, people are writing off this deck. It's still bringing a bunch of results
Yeah.
in Rhodes. I think it was one of the highest win rate. I think it was right under
Mm-hmm.
Victor for like week 3. Like this deck is still bringing in a ton of wins.
Yeah.
I think it's individually, it's not big diff. No, it's not. It's also the problem with KO and why I'm not necessarily wanting to put him in S right away. He's a very, very, very difficult deck to play.
Mm.
And this is one of those Icelander like decks. Whereas I don't think we ever put Icelander in S, but we said if the 5 players on the planet who are
Yeah.
insanely good on Icelander bring that deck, it is an S tier deck in their hands, but
Right.
not in everyone else's.
Like
Michael
Hamilton.
Hamilton or something like that, Yuki on Iceland, like a couple players that are just like insanely good. I think KO is going to end up being one of those decks. I think if I
Mm.
give this deck to the majority of people, they are not going to get the correct line. It's going to take a lot of reps.
Yeah.
It's a brand new deck. People are going to need to stew on this deck for a lot longer. I don't think there's a consensus on like what cards are definitely other than a couple like cast bones and stuff and couple other cards that are very good. I don't think there's a
Right.
consensus yet on like particular matchup spreads or builds or anything. So I think for PTLA, I don't think he's fleshed out enough for people to be very good on the hero
Yep.
compared to Victor, who's just insanely easy and most of the decks already built for you from other sets. You know what I mean?
That's
So
fair. Yeah.
I think I'm actually fine with putting KO there. The spread's pretty good. I think his Dromai matchup's quite good.
Mm.
Obviously, you don't have a ton of like your second cycle poppers aren't
Yeah.
that high, but your aggression is just so high. Like your damage output's so nuts, and your dragon clearing is actually pretty reasonable because with a might token, the claw with go again hits any 4 power or less
Mm-hmm.
dragons, so you can hit mirror guy. You
Yeah.
could roll scabs and hit
There's
passing
also
mirage if you want.
Yep, there's also natural go again on a lot of the attacks while you ride. Your
Mhm.
pulpings too, so you can still clear dragons pretty easily. And yeah, you can
Yep.
get the action points with the scab skins, of course. That's always helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's like pretty good. The Victor matchup, I think it's a bit of a toss up. I think KO can get there with the right builds, and I would say it's if anything slightly KO favored depending on the Victor build. But
Hmm.
uh, his issue is that he needs to run very specific ratios for the deck to not just fall apart. What I mean by that is he doesn't really get that many non-attack or like non-6 slots like Reinar does, like
Yeah.
because he's really, really, really reliant on like having as many six. He's running cast bones essentially, right? And so that
Yep.
really does limit his ability to go a little bit more of a
Non-attack heavy.
yeah, like a more intimidate focused deck. I don't think is as
Yeah,
powerful,
like
even though
no
people are trying.
barragings, right? Nothing like that.
Yeah, things like that, exactly. So I think he's just insanely strong, and I think he does have a lot of very good matchups. However,
Yeah.
I think his warrior matchups is not particular good. I don't think he's good into Kasai. I think he's bad. He's just straight up bad into Dory.
Mm.
I don't. I think he's fine into Olympia, but like not being good into warrior going into PT, I don't think. Like I think you need to have a pretty good warrior matchup, which is why those S tier heroes are where they are. I don't think
Yeah.
KO has it. Like I don't think he has a good warrior matchup. Speaking of the
Hmm.
S Warrior going into Pro Tour, it's Dory. I don't
Right.
even think I, I, anyone who like argues Kasai, it's just like okay, but then what if you run into like Dromai or Kano or stuff or like those decks where you could just literally like just bend over?
Yeah.
Like can you really say that this deck can be that much stronger than the deck that doesn't just like
No,
have straight up losing
I
matchups?
agree with you.
It's
Yeah, I
like
think that if the deck is so prominent in the meta like Dromai is, I don't think you can afford to run a
yeah,
deck confidently that just folds into her. I think you have
for
to
the
have a battle
spread.
plan into it.
Exactly. And I think like your Dromai matchup isn't at nearly as awful as Kasai. It's not nearly as bad. And your Victor matchup's not great, but like that's why you're at A tier, maybe.
Yeah,
But
you can't have
you
everything.
have yeah, you have a good spread into like the into Rangers, pretty
Hmm.
decent spread because you have armor. You can do well into like Dash and the other warriors and decks here and there. I think your
Yeah,
ninja matchup's pretty good because you can go pretty aggro and have on hits, but you also have
yeah.
armor kind of back up and three blocks and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And then your brute matchup, like I think you could do pretty well, definitely into
Yeah,
KO, but I think
yeah.
you
I
you
think
can
into
do
Reinar you're pretty good into Reinar. Uh,
you can I think it depends
skill
on how defensive the
dependent.
Rhinar is. Yeah, like if you see a very defensive Rhinar build with a lot of defense reactions, you might see a little bit of trouble.
Sure,
However,
but then it's a battle of attrition at that point, and then I think Dory can
yeah,
probably win those.
yeah, and I'm talking strictly about Dawnblade when I'm talking about Dory here. I know there's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
hatchets and axe and
I mean that build I
I'm
think
talking
has fallen
strictly
off
Dawnblade.
or out of favor. I don't know if it's really that
It's
popular
really
anymore.
it's really only good against those decks that really want to heavy fatigue you, like Assassin, Teklo, stuff like
Right.
that, where like you need to get to the grindy end game. It's really what you have to do. But I don't think those decks are prevalent enough for me
Exactly.
to want
It's
to
not
run
the
it.
meta really that kind of warrants that kind of build, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, and the rest of the spread is just good enough. And I think your inherent power, now that you have like you got Blade Flurry, you got Grains, you got
Hmm.
Shift the Tides of Battle, you still got a but like you're probably one of the biggest winners coming out of heavy hitters without literally being a
Being a
hero
hero.
from heavy hitters.
Yeah, yeah.
So like other than maybe Kasai, right? But like Kasai wasn't a CC hero beforehand. But like I think
Hmm.
Dory is like one of the big winners from heavy hitters that it is able to just like bring the whole kit and caboodle here, right?
Yeah.
And you still have like twinning, you still have some really obnoxious turns and stacking with Dawnblade, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think she's definitely one of the front runners coming into PTLA. I wouldn't be
Okay.
surprised at all to see her just win straight up.
Yeah. Cool.
Um,
Anybody else in the A tier? I'm
yeah, I
seeing a few
mean,
heroes that I don't know if they're, A tier, but um
why don't we stick with let's stick with these four for now, and then let's
okay.
just go A
Let's
to
do it.
V there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go start with
Arachne.
Arachne.
Nah,
Yeah.
he's D.
He's D. Yeah.
You know what?
He was
Coercive
kind of
tendencies.
he was climbing a bit. But he would never make it past C for me. So I think I'm okay with C or D.
I think the issue is that he got one card. It was coercive tendencies. It's a very good
Hmm.
card, but your game plan is still just around milling, and like you could
Hmm.
do it. Like you could fatigue decks, but I think a lot of the like heavy value decks and a lot of like the top decks, like Arachne to Droma and Victor, is just doomed.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah. In
I
this
don't know
frame
what
of
you're doing into
reference,
those. Yeah.
he's doomed. Yeah.
Um, and I don't think you're doing good against Bravo. I don't think you're doing great against Kasai. Like like these heavier value decks. Like I don't think you're
Hmm.
doing super well. Um,
Yeah.
and you just really didn't get support to cover those kind of bad matchups. I think he's fun as hell. I think he's really fun
He's a
actually.
very
Like
fun,
for a
yeah,
couple
very fun
games,
deck.
I'll play a couple games of him and I'll just be like, all right, I'm over this. Like it's fun,
Got your
but like
fix.
yeah,
Yeah.
I got my fix.
Okay.
Then I go to
I think D's fine. I have nothing really to add to that. So how about Azalea?
Azalea.
All right, Azalea. So
So
I don't know, but I'm feeling kind of A-ish.
you're feeling kind of A-ish? I mean,
Yeah.
here's the thing with Azalea. She's always kind of a bit of a dark horse because in previous metas, like especially like when she came up with Codex, right? She just got, or she has Codex. She got her bullseye bracers back. She was kind of
Hmm.
at full power.
That's a big one. Yeah.
It is a very very big one. However, she is a meta function deck. Like you really do need to bring like if you really love the deck and it's a very very good deck,
Hmm.
you could do some. You just do unfair things if the deck works. You just literally tell your opponent you just can't play the game,
Yep.
right? You just storm these massive dominated arrows like Randall Ledger that just says
Hmm.
no or Judge like the card she got was Judge
Judge
Jury
Jury.
Executioner. Judge Judy, if you want to call Judge
Judge
Judy
Judy.
Executioner. It's a pretty good one.
But it's a one
Also a
of,
good card.
right? So it's
It's a
not
one of.
really deck defining. It's like if you draw
Good
it and it
into.
works, perfect. But it's,
It's definitely
it's a knock it
a win.
basically.
Yeah, it's a win more like into aggro when you have to have like extra resources to actually put crows like to put a aim counter on it.
Yeah.
It's not that easy to actually get it through, and it's really only great into decks that don't want to block you because then the deck like takes their hand. Um,
Yeah.
it's. I think what she has going for her out of the heroes we've kind of already mentioned is KO. I think her KO matchup's quite good. Doesn't give KO a lot of room to use the Scowling Flush Bag because
Just dumps her
she
hand.
often is yeah, it's front loaded damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to just pump a big arrow and fire it.
Yeah.
She also has a lot of good tech arrows for KO, like
Mm-hmm.
using things like fatigue shot to
Oh
like
yeah.
half the first one can get very good value on KO. Can usually get three on a lot of like
Mm.
sixes. Very good value. Rend the Ledger is obviously quite good if KO wants to go wide. So
Turning off his hero power too can be pretty detrimental.
it could be quite good. Yeah, turning off hero power to not have sixes, like
You're just
it's
gonna
you're
whiff.
not
But
you're not playing cast bones after your KO is being turned off, right? So you
yeah,
could delay and push the issue, and KO is not great against decks that throw a lot of on hits at you because it's just
that's
it makes life
brute in a
very difficult.
nutshell, pretty much. Any disruption
Yeah,
against a brute, you're kind of screwed.
yeah. I think her matchup into Ninja is like pretty reasonable. I think
Yeah,
she can do quite well into Dash. I think her main issue here is Guardian,
Guardian.
and I have a feeling there'll be a fair amount of Guardians. Her Warrior matchup is like depending quite literally on the build. I think she's not as good into Kasai that has like a fair amount of reactions and things to go get around it because she can just keep using her legs over and over again and just keep coming
Mm-hmm.
in for five with a go again. And then if you catch Azalea off and offhand, Kasai can't really capitalize, but then at the same time you could still get quite a bit of value because Azalea doesn't block, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you could do like blood on your hands, like you could Spoils of War big turn, and Azalea can't really block super well to remove copper and gold tokens. I haven't seen
Okay.
that matchup too much, to be fair.
Yeah.
I don't like her Dory matchup at all. I think really, really quite bad. Because
Mm-hmm.
you really want to be like having D reacts and blocking Dory's on it. So Dory's just gonna run at you, and you have two blocks in your hand. It's not good. So that's a little bit awkward. And the last
Yeah.
thing is that she's very good against Reinar. That's pretty obvious.
Right.
Levia, she's also pretty. I would say she's pretty good into Levia too. Not as good as into Reinar because you do have like Husk and stuff like that, so you do
Mm-hmm.
get like a one-off. However, if you're able to essentially shut off Levia, if you could like sleep dart Levia, you're just like winning. You know what
Well,
I mean?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So she's very polarizing. I
Okay.
also don't like her illusions matchup. I think she's not very good into Prism. I think she's like borderline. You could win into Dromai, but
Yeah.
it's not fun. So
Should we keep her bottom A or a high B then?
we'll shove her bottom A for now,
Okay.
um, because she can do well against like a couple good decks.
Yeah.
Um, and then into Dash,
And then she's like
can be pretty reasonable.
okay into some, and then maybe a little weaker into the Guardians.
Yeah, honestly, I think put her to B for now.
Okay.
Now that I'm thinking about it, like I think we'll leave her a B for now.
Yeah. Okay.
Betsy,
Ooh, Betsy. So I know
Betsy's
you've
D
tried
tier.
her out for a
No,
bit, and
Betsy's D tier.
okay,
Like
yeah,
it's not even a bad build. Like I'll admit, I've tried a couple different builds, but like you kind of did her dirty here. You didn't give her a weapon. Her hero power is
mm-hmm.
fine. You gave her good times chapeau, which is fine. But you made the hero, and it was quite exciting to begin with. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you start to play more and more with the cards, you realize it was just like, okay, well, what about when you not
Right.
necessarily have enough time to generate the gold? What if you
Yeah.
can't generate
The,
the
the
gold? Depending
the
on
dream scenario I think was pretty nice, like the pipe dream. But then when reality set in, it wasn't that great.
Yeah, she does very fair things. It's like you have Prime to fight. Okay. Well, Victor also has Prime to fight and he just has to have Trounce hitting and then Prime to fight is now online for the full amount whereas like
Yeah,
you have to spend a gold, wager with Betsy, have a card that
a
wagers
lot of things
with
have to line
Betsy,
up a bit. Yeah,
use good time
chapeau.
get the gold, good time chapeau, use the gold for good time
Mm-hmm.
chapeau and actually hit, right? So and overpower is just not as strong as so dominate. So
Yeah. So I think
value game
if you want to play
is
Guardian,
just
there are better options than
yeah,
Betsy right now for sure.
much better options. Yeah, you play Bravo or Victor any day of the
Yeah.
week here.
All
So
right. Bolton. Cool.
Bolton's tough. I think he's
Yeah.
I think he's actually probably above Azalea.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's pretty reasonably an A tier.
Okay.
And let me tell you why.
Sure.
Um, I think he's A tier because A, he has a nice matchup spread. So essentially, when I think Bolton, he's essentially I'm always thinking about Switchblade, I think they call it, where you have like both packages. You have Raiden, but then you
Mm-hmm.
have like the Sabers package, and you get so many good points, good percentage points in matchups with your Sabers package. That it's just like extremely valuable to run it, right? Like, cause it just makes your Guardian matchups super fun. Like
Mm-hmm.
the only time where I really don't particular, I think Bolton's also like pretty reasonable into Dromai. You go Raiden, you have a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
poppers, you have your sword.
Yeah.
I think you also have like pretty reasonable matchups into KO. I don't think it's the best into KO, but it's a pretty reasonable matchup because you don't really have like as many spiky on hit big turns.
Yeah.
Um, but I think into some matchup, like I think your ninja matchup is not great. I don't think your Leviathan matchup is particularly great. I think your Prism matchup is not that great. But
Yeah.
it's really well, I mean it depends on the build, but I think it's a matter of overall the matchup spread is quite good. Oh, but your Bravo matchup's quite good.
Okay.
As Bolton, I think it's a very pretty good Bravo matchup too. I think I mentioned Guardians, but like I think
Yeah.
Bravo's not on there yet. But I think your Bravo matchup's quite good also. Um, you have a pretty nice fridge. You
Yeah.
got kind of the same. You didn't necessarily love the warrior cards as much as like Dory and Kasai did. Like you're
Right.
not really going to run Blade Flurry necessarily and stuff like that. Shift Tides of Battle, but Grains is a nice piece of armor if you want it. It's depending on what kind of build you're going. I think he is overall still quite strong. I don't think he's as good as Dory, but you don't really need to be as good as Dory to bring the deck to PT. Like if you have a bunch
Yeah.
of reps on Bolton, I think he's a very reasonable choice.
That's fair. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll keep him bottom A, and then maybe we'll rearrange. But no, I agree with that.
Mhm.
How about Bravo? We talked about him a few times now. Um, is he
Yeah,
someone you got to look out for, or is he kind of still just kind of coasting?
I think Bravo is also A tier. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put Bravo in A tier just because one, he has first he still did get the upgrade with the arms.
Mm-hmm, the arm piece.
With
Yeah.
the yeah, with the arm piece. He's still just a very good deck. I think he's not great into KO. I'll admit. I've seen that matchup quite a bit.
Right.
No fear kind of blanks a bunch of Bravo turns. Is just really
Mm-hmm.
not that fun. As far as getting your dominated stuff across, and then KO just outvalues you with like Caspa and Blood Rush. But
Right.
I think and then your matchup to Bolden's not great. Your Dory is like 50-50. Your Azalea's great. Um, with enough go again, your Dromai matchup could be like you just go Unga Bunga, you just raise your Lubers and you just run at them,
Mm-hmm.
and it that matchup could be fine. I think the Victor matchup completely depends on the deck because I've
Okay.
seen super duper fatigue Bravo, like super fatigue Bravo, and I've seen like mid range
Interesting.
Unga Bunga Bravo.
I would have assumed
So I
Dunga
think
Bunga is probably the way to go, just because
you
you
would
have
think so.
Dominate into Victor, who is probably going to try to block you out. But
I've seen like Rams Head Staunch Bravo. I've seen a lot of different
yeah,
builds. I've seen the heavy fatigue builds actually do pretty well.
okay, yeah,
Um, you'd be surprised, like,
I
especially
am
just in the
surprised.
latest RTNs.
Mm.
I've seen pretty good, pretty reasonable results. So I think now when you see Bravo, you kind of have to worry about fatigue Bravo, and that's just like a different package essentially, right?
Wow,
That you have to be worried about. So
cool.
Bravo still has that kind of, and he also just like his hero text was great, like dominate on demand. You can just
Yeah,
close games, which is
exactly. Yeah, which is why I
can't
thought
be
it could have
understated.
been quite good into Victor. So,
Yeah,
but I mean, he has
yeah,
game regardless of which build he picks. I think it's just uh,
yeah,
based on the other heroes of the meta, you got to watch out for which build Bravo's going to be going. I guess.
yeah. And like your ninja matchup's like pretty reasonable.
Mm.
Your matchup into assassin's pretty good. Your matchup, so
Yeah.
you do really well into these like fringe matchups. I think
Right.
your dash matchup's pretty like dash IO is like pretty good because you have so many on hits they can't block.
Right.
And
Right.
then if you have enough go again, like your unless the dash is like super value
Yeah. Like
borderline
arm.
fatiguey dash, I think you're
Yeah,
doing fine.
builds
It's not
evolve
Tree Frog.
items and
Is it like is it Tree
not
Frog? I
not
don't
free
even
for
know.
I probably not. The item package with just purifier
Just
and
call it
chamber
yeah,
is
you
good
just
enough
call it
into
like
Bravo.
you just call it like value dash at that point, right? But
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
into like reasonable, like into a plan, you do really good into like boost dash kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah.
there's gonna be boost dashes running
It's
around
just
trying to like
turn
catch
your
people off
brain off
guard.
and just go.
Yeah, but like the deck can be super powerful,
Hmm.
right? So I
Yeah.
think Bravo
Okay.
still has a good enough matchup spread. I think you could also beat Kano. Like you still have AB3. You can run
Right.
Kano. You
Right.
can run Oasis too. Like it's like Kano is going to be a bit of a boogeyman. So I think having a
Lantern,
good Kano.
lantern with
Uh,
Titan's fist, whatever it's called.
no, you're going to run land.
Yeah.
Like you can still run
Yeah.
AB3 and run at them, and
Yeah.
they unless they can kill you. Like you have a ton of blues. Pretty good Kano matchup.
Yeah.
But well, I say pretty good. I say pretty good, like reasonable to like Kasai's Kano matchup,
Right,
where
right,
you can
right.
just
Yeah, like you have game,
you
you
just
might not win if Kano gets lucky, but then no one wins if Kano gets lucky. So yeah, at
yeah.
least you won't die outright to his arcane
it's, it's
damage.
it's not as bad as like Victor's and Kasai's Kano matchup because you have
Uh huh.
reasonable on hits, you have like CNC pummel, and you have a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff that can force them to do stuff. So that's
Exactly.
Bravo.
Exactly.
Let's go to Dash
All
IO.
right, Dio. All right,
Talk,
Dio.
talk about a talk about a hero that's fallen from
I
grace,
was
huh?
gonna say that Dio's been like the talk of the town in the prior set, right? But
And she
now
was
now
hot.
I think we're just seeing the weaknesses or the cracks in the foundation, right? Like it just you can't really like mount a good offense or not offense. You can't really uh, keep that consistency. I think into decks that just
Yeah,
have such good value, um,
yeah,
because you
yep,
can't
that's
block a
correct.
lot, right? And you're just kind
Yep.
of you just kind of fall through the cracks a little bit.
Yeah, your combo deck, right? But the issue with that is your combo deck with a bunch of cards that don't block. And a lot of these decks that either run really fast or just outvalue you or have on hits, like you have issues with all of those. Like you run
Yeah,
into Ninja, it's not great. You are like Katsu's not great. I don't think she
yeah.
does particularly well into Bravo and stuff
The
like that. I
Guardians
think
as well.
yeah, I think her ability to not at least at the builds we see now, her ability to not have to play combo just isn't high enough to have a game plan into a lot of
Yeah,
these decks that might show up. And with a diverse enough meta, I think Dash IO becomes better the more the thinner not thinner, the more narrow the meta is. So the
right.
more narrow the meta, where you can actually like test against a couple specific decks and have like
Yeah,
really bursty game plans for, the better Dash IO would be.
like contrary to Bravo, who's just by default good into a big spread of heroes.
His
Dash
card quality is
IO,
just so high. Yeah.
you're very niche, I think. And in this meta, it's not really the time to have a deck that is that niche. You can play her if you want to. I think she's still fine, but you're gonna struggle into a lot of
It's a
the top.
labor of love.
It is, and a lot of the top tier heroes in this list, at least, just kind of devour her. Azalea too. I
Mhm.
mean, yawn hits are just gonna destroy you. So
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're screwed. Yeah, Azalea is just doomed.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
literally, I've played that matchup before. It's absolutely doomed for Dio.
yeah,
Like no contest.
yeah,
Um, what
yeah.
about reg? Okay, now we're going to dash. Was it
Regular
IE?
dash,
Was
i.e.
it dash?
the
Yeah, the adventure
inventor extraordinaire. Yes,
extraordinaire.
that's right. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
I think dash is solidly in B. I think you can
yeah.
argue for A, but I think we're going to put her in B.
Top of B is where I
Uh,
was thinking.
top of B. I think she like her matchup into Victor can be quite good. If you're able to like set up items and grind out value. I would see that
Yeah,
matchup a ton, but
same.
it's not that different from the Bravo matchup,
Yeah.
which can go both ways depending on how your deck is built. If the Guardian, because Victor doesn't necessarily always run as many go against sources like Bravo does, but like if
Hmm.
Victor is running stuff like E Strike Zealous
Yeah.
Rouse, and like 9 of, it could get not great. However, I don't know how defend because Victor you have to run a bunch of clash cards and stuff like that. I don't really know how it depends on the build.
Yeah.
Um, but like I think your Dromai matchup is honestly 50-50. I've seen it go
Hmm.
both ways, and
Hmm.
nothing has really changed with the matchup. I've seen Dromai's shit on Dash. I've seen Dash shit
Yeah.
on Dromai. It really depends. It's usually a very close game.
I think KO
Um,
kind of scares me a little bit as dash. It's
KO is
just
bad. Brood in general is bad. Like that's why Dash is in B. Dash is in B because Brutes are here.
right.
Like Levias here, it's not a good matchup. KO can run smashing performance. And if you try to like boost into KO, KO does have a bunch of 3 blocks. Like a lot
Yeah,
of KO's cards block for
exactly.
three.
It's not even the item destruction. It's just the sheer value of their turns. I think that make it so that you can't set up
Yeah,
items. I think you have to go aggressive, because they'll run over you. So it's like you're kind of
I
stuck.
think Yeah, and the key is like smashing performance still attacks. It's not even like you're taking a turn
Yeah,
off to arc smash. Like smashing
right.
performance is
That's
just like
true.
a
It comes with it.
six.
It's built in.
Yeah, it's just six, and you just like hit an item, and it's just like, oh, cool. I get six plus like two value off the
Yeah.
two cost that you need to take a turn off to swing the item.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're taking a turn off to set an item or spark or whatever, it means
Yeah.
you've taken damage, right? So you're really getting more value into it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's true.
and your Reiner matchup's just awful. So I don't even want to talk about the Reiner matchup.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I think
I
B
think
is
that's
pretty
yeah.
reasonable. Yeah.
I think that alone is kind of sitting her in B,
All right.
squarely into B.
All right. World champion
I
Fi. Oh man.
Oh, a lot's happened since the the
I
World
know.
Championships.
Poor Fi. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Fi? I'm not really sure where to put him now. Ninjas, I think in general are maybe not so great. I know. I think I've seen some
I think
Katsu wins, but I don't know about Fi.
I think Fi is still a B tier hero.
Hmm.
It really I think he has to be gem blessed in this particular case. I think there's matchups that he really wants to see and matchups he really doesn't want to
Yeah.
see. Like I don't want to see Victor, but I really want to see Dromai, for instance, right?
Yeah.
As Fi. That's probably like the matchup I'm more interested in. I think
Hmm.
his KO matchup is not very good because Flush Bag just like
Yeah. I mean, that's the
can
thing.
potentially shut off a turn.
Brutes were totally screwed into Ninja in the past, but Fleshbag is just such a good tool that you can just take a turn off really with
Yeah,
that single
it's
block. So
Yeah,
it's
I'd say it's more awkward for Katsu than it is Fi, because Fi, a
yeah,
lot of his cards just happen to be 0 for 3s, and it's like, okay, well, you have links, and like it's very
yeah.
telegraphed what you're trying to do. There's really not a lot of sneaky
That
shit
is
you can
true.
do with
That is true.
Fi.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
your turn is generally 0 for 3, like 0 for 4, pitch, swing the sword, Phoenix
yeah.
Flame,
Go for a
maybe
lava
Lava
burst or
Burst.
something.
Yeah, and
And
that's
then
your 5 card
at that
play.
point, you know, at that point, if you counter the pitch correctly, you see they have one card left for a lava burst. All right,
Yeah,
here's a Fleshbag, and
exactly.
good luck. Yeah,
Exactly. And like if you flush back and take one of their chains away, it's like, oh, okay, well,
here's a lava burst
it's
for two.
yeah. The thing is like, Fi can get around it better than Kazu because of Phoenix Flame, so you can still get like one chain link off. However,
Hmm.
if you're able to like flush bag a 0 for 4, it's still like six
Yeah, that
value,
is true. Yeah, yeah,
still pretty good.
yeah.
Um, so for that, like it's just not a great matchup. I think your Dory matchup is not good because of the amount of armor Dory has, and you're just bad at blocking Dory.
Yeah, your
Um,
Bravo is probably not great either.
your Bravo is
It's kind of
probably
skill
not.
dependent, but
It depends if you can like go off, but like I think in general, like Bravo has enough tools to like disrupt you, like choke slam, spinal
yeah,
crush, crippling crush. Like there's a lot of tools to just like shit on you. If Bravo's rolling hot, you're doomed regardless. You
true.
don't have enough armor to deal with that. Most decks are doomed if Bravo starts rolling, right? But Five
Yeah,
especially is doomed
yeah.
because
All
his like
those
one
two
card hand
blocks,
stuck.
and obviously,
His
yeah,
two
he
card
needs
hand
more
stuck.
cards to do max damage. So, he's fine
Yeah.
into dash. I think that's probably where he
Oh yeah, he's good into
shines.
dash. Oh
But
yeah, he's
she's
good
not
into
really
dash for sure.
the contention, the point of contention in this
No.
meta. So I know.
Yeah.
I think I agree with B. Low B probably for now.
Yeah. We're skipping Icelander because she doesn't
That was a
exist.
mistake. Yep. Goodbye, Icelander. The other wizard. Oh man, Kano. Some results have been had with this guy. I don't
I
know.
mean, Kano's an A tier hero. I don't think we could
Yeah.
argue this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
His
really
results kind
climbed.
of speak for themselves. I
Oh.
think the other thing is that the amount of polarization between his matchups is too much to ignore at this point. Because I think there
Yeah.
are just more Kano players and players willing to bring this hero to
Hmm.
bigger events. I think we've seen a steady climb. Like Rhodes is the start, but like people could bring this hero to PT.
Yeah.
Um, and like have a nice spread. Like there's plenty of decks that just can't afford to respect Kano just because it's a really tight list.
Hmm.
Um, I think like Kano really good matchups into like things like Kasai, really good matchups into Victor, pretty good spread into the Warriors. Just in general, enough matchups that I mean Dory's not amazing, but it can be
Hmm.
pretty good. Um,
Dromai.
not you know
Red line. Red
Dromai.
line. Dromai.
I think it depends on the Dromai list. I think Dromai can struggle against Kano depending on like the scenario, but in general, you just like throw stuff at
You
them and
just
see
have
if
the
they can
board, and
kill
then
you.
your dragons are just gonna constantly go at them. So
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah.
you just have Rake. You just make AB and like unless you're running Singe, it's kind of hard to
Oh
get
yeah, yeah,
around.
yeah. It's true. It's true. You can get around that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a lot of blues, but you have Furnace, so it's like, okay, well, it's not
Mm-hmm.
awful if you have some kind of target. And you can really like push a ton of damage into Kano, and
Yeah.
Kano doesn't run poppers, so
Yeah.
kind of difficult there. But he does have a lot of very polarizing issues. He also has great matchups with Leo Teklovas and stuff like these really fringe decks that can just like randomly shit on you when you're not looking.
Yeah.
Um, and again, Kano's just one of those decks. So like if Kano's rolling, there's very little you can do to stop it.
Yeah.
Uh, but there are still decks that can do well, like KO and Brutes in general have easy access to AB3 with
Mm-hmm.
Skullhorn. KO has no fear, which can prevent a shit ton of
Mm.
damage into
That's
like
true.
any of that. The Warriors do have Take It on the Chin, which is damage prevention. Any damage prevention, there's two damage there,
Right.
combined with some AB. So Warriors do have some recourse. I mean, Kasai, but like Dory has like some pretty good recourse
Yeah.
there. Um, and then Kano went into the Guardians. Like, yeah, Bravo can run at you, but like Bravo could also not run at you,
Yeah.
and you can set up and do a bunch of. It really depends on the deck, right? Can do pretty good against those like more slow dash decks, the slow Bravo decks, because the Teklo decks, like it's very um easy to get space and then snowball it because you just can't prevent all that damage unless you're so tacked towards Kano, but
Yeah.
there's not going to be enough decks that want to do that, right?
No, definitely. Unless he's like S tier and has been S tier for a long time.
No,
But
I
I
think the
think,
issue is deck's too
yeah.
good. Deck's too difficult. The deck is too difficult for
Mm,
a lot of people to want to pick up, and he's so specific. Like his
yeah.
playstyle is so specific that you really need to love this hero to play him day in and day out.
Yeah.
Very mentally taxing as well.
It's true.
So
Imagine playing a calling like 12 rounds in a
I would,
row.
yeah,
Like,
my brain would. Oh, I have enough trouble playing regular decks.
yeah. So fair
Um,
enough. Mid of A tier. Fair enough.
yeah, I put him in at A tier.
All right. We've got Kasai next. So we spoke quite a bit about Kasai. A lot of popularity for sure. I just don't know if she's really seeing that many results.
Not really, right? I mean, she's good. She's definitely top of B tier at the very lowest. I think
Yeah.
she's
Okay.
hovering
Okay.
between B and A.
Yeah.
Um, I think you have like let's look at the matchup spread. Like I think your
Mm-hmm.
Droman matchup's atrocious. I think your Kano matchup's
Mm-hmm.
atrocious. I don't really like the Dory matchup that much, because you don't run a ton, like you can run D-Reacts, but you don't run like such a high amount that like stuffs Dory each time. But Dory has on hits all the time because of Dawnblade, and you have it sometimes for like gold. Um, so I like Dory a little bit more for the snowball potential. I think your Bolton matchup can be okay. I think it really depends on the Bolton. I think your KO matchup is
Yeah.
decent,
KO.
like it's pretty good. I think you're probably slightly favored into KO depending on
Mm-hmm.
how the KO
That's
plays.
pretty big. I think having that point in your court, I think, is a
Hmm.
very good point for you kind of moving up on the tier list because KO is gonna be very popular. I think in this meta, a lot of
Yeah, I would
people
say
want to
like
play him.
the good matchups up there are like going to be Victor KO Bravo, whereas
Yeah.
like
The atrocious
there's
slash unplayable matchups.
there's some
Yeah.
really difficult matchups out there. I also don't think you do great into Ninja. I don't think your Ninja matchup's very good.
Mm,
The reason being is like you don't really present that much. Like they just ignore
yeah.
you. Like what do you like? They're gonna run at you. What are you gonna do?
Right.
Like you have so if you have to play mid range, you're generally not gonna do very well against hyper aggro decks because your goal is gonna be other mid range and control decks where you can
Yeah.
try to like
Outvalue.
outvalue them.
Yeah.
Whereas a mid range deck, if I block 6 and try to swing back, pitch a card, Centauri, Blade Runner Centauri for a total of 7 damage, and I blocked 6, you're getting a 13, but Katsu can poop out 20 to 5 off
Yeah.
like a good combo turn.
Hmm.
And you have to pick your blocks, and if you miss block, you're just kind of
Yeah.
severely punished.
Yeah.
So I don't think your ninja matchup's particularly good here. I haven't really seen a ton of good matchups into Katsu for Kasai. I don't know about 5 so much, but Katsu is kind of what I'm looking at here.
Okay. Yeah. So I think top of B is where I would put it right now.
Yeah, I'll leave her at top of B. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
Okay.
Um,
All right. The other ninja.
Katsu, Katsu B, Katsu B,
Probably. Yeah. How about so
right
higher than
next to
Fi?
Kasai. Yeah,
Okay.
right next
So
to
okay.
Kasai.
Okay. Yeah. I was assuming a bit better than Fi at this point. Just wasn't sure
Hmm.
how far better, but yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Katsu good. Katsu good hero.
Very good. Yeah.
Good matchup into Dromai can do pretty good against the Warriors. Dory really depends on what kind of deck they're building.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty reasonable against Kano to the point where you could just run at him with a shit ton of damage and do
Mm-hmm.
quite well. I think your Guardian matchup is just like bad. Like specifically Victor. Like your Victor matchup is awful. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
really bad because you just like you can't catch a break. Like they've got
Yeah.
4 blocks, they've got D reacts, they have a
Right.
shit ton of armor. It's very hard to get anything across. And they just keep throwing big value because they win clashes most of the time because you don't
Yeah.
really have big attacks. You could beat Bravo, but Bravo's not a particularly easy matchup
Yeah.
if they're throwing a bunch of on hits at you. You're good into like stuff like Dash.
Mm-hmm.
You could be good into like Illusionists, which is fine. So you have to be a bit gem blessed, but I think the deck is, and you could do good against Rhinar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think, as I mentioned earlier, against KO, the Scowling, I think it's up to the KO to win the matchup. I think
Right.
if KO, it's KO's game to lose. I think
Yeah.
if KO
Yeah.
plays not optimally, Katsu can easily shit on him. Like it's not that hard to see it. But if KO plays optimally, not easy for Katsu to win. You have to bring in links, like pouncing links, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to like combo the living shit and try to get double triple bonds.
Yeah.
That's how Katsu beats KO. Not that easy to pull off. That's just
You
Katsu
gotta.
could have dead hands too.
Yep. You gotta bait out the flashback too as early as you can.
You do.
Scare the KO into using it, and then you're okay. But as long as
Yep.
that piece is on the board, I think you can't really freely walk in and just do your combo. You got to be very careful.
Yep. No, it's fair.
Okay,
Levia,
we talked about her a little bit. She is still fairly good, I think.
probably top of B or lowest A. Not lowest A. A or
Yeah.
top of B essentially is where I see her.
Okay, let's increase the B a little bit more, I think.
Sure. That's fine.
Or
Um,
depends. We might have some more A heroes coming in, so let's put her top of B for now.
sure, we could put her top of B for now. But likely we'll probably start shoving her in A, but
Okay. Yeah.
I think her main issue has always been consistency. I think her power level is quite high, but consistency is like she can be targeted by extremely random things like
Hmm.
sleep dart from Azalea.
Yeah, it's fair.
Um, but the deck really doesn't really care what the other deck is doing. And it's one of
Mm.
those decks where you'll really care way more about your own game plan
Just
than
playing
your opponent's game
solitaire a little
plan.
bit.
Yeah, you're trying to in this particular case you got a lot more like agility bases. So like
Right.
you're not playing cast bones, but you can play a more agility game plan to not have to rely on
Like your
you know what's it
six
called, Dread
two
Screamer.
for six jet screamer. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Not having to rely solely on Dread Screamer to be like your go again, not having to roll scabs and like really
Hmm.
weird turns. And I think based on that, her power level did increase.
Right.
I don't really think it increased to the point where I'm gonna love playing the hero into such a wide field.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think Levia hasn't really like she has won RTNs for sure,
Hmm.
but the problem is unless someone figures out how to crack the consistency issue, I never see this hero going particularly far in a very big event. I think that's kind of what's
Yeah.
holding her back. I think maybe someone will break the sauce for LA and she'll like do super well, but at the
Right.
moment or get very lucky, one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but at the moment she just doesn't have that same consistency. Like maybe she's running some wind ups and maybe she's running this and that, but they're not blood debt.
Hmm.
They're not necessarily going to be all six. Like they could be 6 powers, but like she can't really run the blue ones that well. Stuff like that. Like I think she is less forgivable. She has less forgiving power than KO as far as consistency,
Hmm.
whereas KO has a lot of consistency,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of holding her back a little bit.
Yeah. Agreed. Yep. Okay, Max. What's up with Max these days?
I think Max is like just solidly B tier. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
Max is just essentially one of those combos. Not really. I don't know if you want to call him combo, but he is a
Uh,
setup deck, right?
he is set up. Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
he is setting up Nitro Mechanoids. That is the most. That is the game plan that seems to work. Like the boost plan doesn't really
Hmm.
work. Like with it just doesn't. But because he just doesn't have enough powerful cards in there. But I think his best strategy is Nitro Mechanoid, and that is a pretty good strategy against decks that cannot put a lot of pressure onto you, right? So it's not that great into super aggressive decks like Katsu, Five, stuff like that. um, but can be very good into decks like Victor. That or like a slower dash or something like that. Something that just doesn't put a ton of very aggressive pressure onto you unless you kind of set up that mechanoid, right? So to
Mm-hmm.
that end, I think there's and like pretty good, probably pretty good into Kasai, stuff like that. So I think overall, like he's a good deck, and I think he can do well. Um, but I don't think his Nitro win con is as powerful among a wide spread of heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's also like not particularly good into illusionist, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be a bit of an issue. But like if you see Dromai, like I don't really know, I don't know what you're supposed to
Yeah.
do against the dragons. Like you don't
you
really
you
have a
have to
good way of
clean them
getting into
up, really.
dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really and like Dory and stuff like that. It depends on the build, but like you can't just shove a bunch of D reacts in that build because you need to find nitro, right? So you could shove some, but like I don't know if you can go full tank,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So I put him here, kind of above five, below Azalea. I don't
That's
really feel good putting him above Azalea. It kind of hurts to put him a bit above Phi too. I don't really know. I guess he has something unique, whereas Phi doesn't, because Katsu is just kind of a little better. But it's like I don't know.
yeah, they're all in the same row. It's fine. Who cares?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right,
um,
Olympia. You've played Olympia. Where does
I'm gonna
Olympia
put him
go?
in. I'm gonna put him in.
Above Dio?
No, I'm just looking at the other heroes. How many of those are C? Probably those five are C2 heroes. I could put him in B. I'm fine putting him in B.
And B? Yeah.
Probably low B, like low B.
Low B.
Um, I think Olympia is B because the other heroes are better, not because he's
Mm-hmm.
necessarily the other warrior heroes are better, not
Right.
necessarily
Right.
because he's bad. So I've tried the Decimator Axe and I've tried the Hatchet build.
Yeah.
The Hatchet build is definitely a lot more flexible and it gives you like a better matchup spread. However, I think your matchup into like stuff like KO or like more mid-rangey builds is not as good as Kasai. Into those same kind of matchups, I think he can do very well into playing his own value plan, but against Victor, he's pretty reasonable. Against Droma, he's not. Like he has cleave, but like it's just
Yeah.
not usually enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because like how do you deal with Rake the Ember? It's just like the same issue,
Yeah.
right? So not being good against Dromai is I don't know if it's and your Victor matchup is not free. You still have to like win. It's not that easy, right? If you're able to track and Victor happens to have some D reacts when you want to like spill blood up the ante or something like that, and they have the reacts for it and they're tracking your stack. It's not that easy, right? So I think his spread is just not powerful enough, and he doesn't really do enough by himself. Like gold is fine, you cash it and you draw cards,
Yep.
and you could have some nutty turns, but like it's not really good enough for me to want to bring this hero above the other warriors. And if you can't bring above the other warriors, then there's a bunch of other decks that you could bring instead, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. At least he has the Great Axe, which he could use, but that's not unique enough, I think,
I
to
don't
make
think it's
him.
the meta for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. He does have that option, but I don't really think that's the meta for it.
Yeah. Cool. Ooh. Okay. New Prism.
Numenars.
New Minaris. Yeah. Okay. So there was hype around that. I don't know if it's good. Question mark.
Yeah, she's a B tier hero.
She's a B tier hero. Yeah.
And I say this, but like there's heroes that are good enough on Prism to easily bring her to an A or an S tier hero.
Right.
I think overall, again, similar issue to um, the what was the hero that I just literally said is too new? KO? Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I like knocked it down a peg, right? I think Prism still needs a little more flat. She's had time to be fleshed out a bit, but
Yeah.
not with the new weapon, right?
Yeah.
I think builds are all over the place. Monolag, hybrid. Oh my god, what's the Iris? Hybrid Iris builds, of
Mm-hmm.
pure Iris builds.
Mm.
I think there's too much running around, and I think Prism's a very hard hero to play against, and everyone should have reps into Prism if Prism shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Prism just has like a lot of very like unfortunate matchups simply due to like some of her hands could be so god awful, filled with like no blocks, and you just like essentially lose on the spot or take a
Yeah.
million damage. Your brute matchup is not good. Like Leviah, Rhinar, KO, take your pick. Not
Yep.
not very good
Yep.
matchups.
Yep.
Um, You can do okay into Guardian depending on if you have the Iris package. You're not good into Ninja. Like I don't like you could do
Yeah.
you do good into like Warrior. Like your Warrior matchup is pretty good, especially like Kasai, even Dory and stuff like that. You also your Warrior matchup's good, but like I don't like your drama matchup's not. It used to be awful, but with
Right.
with Numenaris, it's maybe like a
Yeah,
60-40 on
that was
my
the one
side, and
that was holding her back quite a bit. At least now it is a little better, but
yeah.
still, yeah, not great like you said. Yeah,
Yeah, I think you could sack the living shit out of your opponent and ALS them to hell, but like
yeah, that's always an option.
I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know if that makes it
you can't
higher
really count
as
on
the
that.
T
I
list.
mean, in some decks you can, but in some
Mhm.
matchups, I mean, you can. But I think across the board, it's not a viable win strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
Okay,
Reinar,
yeah, put her above Max. I guess I'm not really sure.
I think it's fine. Just putting it around there is okay.
Okay, Reiner. Huh. Reiner. Is there a reason to play him over Kano? I mean, he's greater into control, I
You mean
think.
KO?
Did I say Kano? KO, I mean, yeah.
There's a
Um,
reason to blame over Kano.
yes. But KO. I mean, Reiner's still fine, but I haven't really
I
seen
think he's
any
eight.
results. You think he's A tier with KO? Okay, yeah. Maybe
Yeah, I think
I'll
he's
let you explain why. So I don't know.
yeah. So
Yeah.
here's the reason. If we're looking at the spread for PT and what's going to show up, I think
Mm-hmm.
Reinar is not good at roads because the meta is very open,
Yeah.
filled
Okay.
with like a lot of pet decks and random decks that people not necessarily bring to PT. Like there might be a shit ton more ninjas showing up to a roads than a
Yeah, and that's
PT.
what I was kind of. That's where my headspace was
Maybe
at
not,
for RTNs,
but
right? Okay, but maybe for
Mhm.
PT. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking. It's like okay, if we think the best decks are Victor, Reiner's great into Victor.
Mm-hmm.
Dromai, Reiner's great into Dromai. Okay, so
That's fair. Yeah.
you got winning matchups to do S tier decks. You're pretty reasonable into Kano. You're not great into Dory. You're good into Bravo is generally considered a wing matchup. KO is kind of just whoever rolls second, in my
Mm.
opinion. Like whoever happens to get the jump on the other.
Yep. Gets
Um,
blood rush
you're
first.
pretty good. Yeah, like you're good into mid-range value. Like you're pretty reasonable into Kasai. Like you have the ability to like
Mm.
stop these heavily blocking decks. Yeah, you're bad into Ninja and you just get dumpstered by Azalea. So like some of these B tier or what we've put as B tier decks, yeah, you're not doing great into. But a lot of these A to S tier decks you are doing good into. And if we
Mm-hmm.
think those are the decks that might show up in
Yeah.
greater
Okay.
strength, I don't really see a problem putting them in A.
That's fair.
Oh, and
Yeah.
you're good
Yeah.
into like you're good into dash, good into like good into the mechanologist. You could just run arc smash shit like that if you want
Yeah.
to. Like
I mean, what he
mm,
has over KO is his draw my matchup, like you said. So that's a big win in his favor, I
my
think.
matchup is very good.
It's a lot
Yes.
better for Reinhardt. Is that's true.
Okay.
So and the
And X,
intimidate
X
into Kano is actually really strong.
can be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The decks that want to block, I think, are some of the better decks in the format. The decks with a ton of three block.
Yeah.
You can see all these decks that we've put in ANS happen to just have a lot of three blocks, very good at like mid-range value, but can also
Yeah.
do
Victor especially.
disgusting stuff. Yeah. And a lot of the aggro decks just can't really keep up on a consistent basis. Doesn't mean they can't win.
Yeah.
It just means the game plan of like mid-range value grind is just happens to be better than just
Hmm.
like unga bunga aggro at this particular junction, right?
Yeah. So I think you said
Um,
it very well. So bottom line, he's good into a lot of the top tier heroes in our list, and suffers into a lot of the B tier heroes that we have here. But in a PT event, that's probably where he's going to shine into the heroes that we expect to see the most of, right?
yeah, until we're wrong and Kasu just wins, and we told everyone to go
Oh
Reiner.
yeah, yeah.
That's fine. I bought a bunch of Reiner stocks.
Reinhardt stunk, yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay. So still below
what do we
KO. I
on
think
now?
KO is probably better into the field, but
Yeah, KO just has more inert power, in my opinion, just because of things like Castbone and
yeah,
his hero ability is more inherently aggressive, but the
yeah,
value you can get off it is very good.
yeah, and more
Uh,
consistent probably.
yes, depending on your hand, definitely. Like you could definitely use KO almost every turn.
Hmm.
Whereas Reinar, you need to intimidate, right?
You're gonna be
You need to
blocking
have that
more often
discharge to
than not,
intimidate.
and then you save up for the big
Yes.
turns if you can.
Yeah, Blood Rush
That's
deck.
all you need.
Uh,
Cool.
what do we got? Riptide?
We got Riptide next. Uh,
Here.
can I finally put something in CT? Yeah,
Yeah.
probably below Dio. Does he have any
Yeah.
merits really? Because I mean,
No. I
yeah.
mean, I, the problem with Riptide is that I think his game plan is just like, okay, get a trap value going, and then just hit him with big arrows and hope that you can run him out of
Hmm.
cards, right? And
They
just try to
keep,
be like the
yeah.
unbeatable wall.
they keep giving him like specializations that are actually very overpowered. Like in of themselves, they're good specialization cards, but it's I
Mhm.
think just the hero itself is just
I
he needs
wanna
more.
I wanna see someone use that new trap card, that new ranger
The one
card.
out
That's not
that's
a
what I was
Riptide
thinking
card,
of.
but
Yeah,
what's it called? Ripped something tied, like net or something. It's the dude with the net. I
I
don't know.
gotta find it later. No, I totally
It's
forgot
like
the
a
name.
bunch of he gets a bunch of traps
Yeah,
essentially. I
it
want to
was like
see someone
it
just
was a
do
blue for 4. I think was that right? It was
yeah,
like
and
a
you get like
blue.
up to 4 traps if you reveal them or
That
something.
was the one. Yeah, yeah. You get
Yeah,
four
reel
free
in, reel
traps.
in. It's called reel in, I
Reel
think.
in.
Right?
Okay.
I think it's reel in.
It
I
doesn't even
want
ring a bell,
to.
but I assume you're right.
I'm pretty sure it's reel in.
Yeah.
I think
Seems like a
Riptide
very
is
good card.
it's a fun deck, but it's a fun card in a fun deck, which is like the same thing I said about Arachne.
Yeah.
But I don't know who you're beating here. Like I think
Yeah.
you could stand toe to like I think your Guardian matchup is like I don't know what you're supposed to do against Guardian. But
Yeah.
it's your Guardian matchup and your Illusions matchup is just like okay,
Yeah.
and then your Kano matchup's doomed. Like what your traps
Hmm.
don't do anything.
Yeah,
So
it's true. Yeah.
you've got a lot of non matchups, and I think too many non matchups for my liking that
Yeah.
I just don't think he really has. He's a usable deck, and you can squeeze out wins against some other like unsuspecting decks. Like
Yeah.
possibly you could probably fatigue out a bunch of these other decks like Warrior, um, but
He
I
was
don't know.
okay in Blitz, I remember. I remember like there was a thing on Talishar where he would just kind of
I
go
think
undefeated in Blitz.
I think we're pushing it when we're saying, oh
Just good into
yeah,
Blitz.
the
Yeah,
Team
yeah.
Blitz deck. There's a
Let's keep
Team Blitz tournament. Save it for that.
there you go. All right, C tier it is. All right, Teklo,
Teklo Lawson,
the
Teklo Daddy,
the
C tier.
man. C tier?
You
Okay.
know what? You know what? It's like that other. I saw the Age Open.
Yeah.
Love the Age Open. Really, really great tournament. My boys Zane and Luber just trying to squish people there. But
Mm-hmm.
I think Teklo like got to finals to one of them, and
Right.
then saw the Droma I lost. But the point is, he got to the finals, and then Alan
On
Wu
Dromai.
won. No, he had the guy on his channel and did a deck
Oh.
tech. And essentially, Teklo is described as like the antithesis, right? The
Mm.
deck that is there to prey, and it's the gem luck. It's my favorite kind of deck. The roll it's
Yeah.
imagine being Reinar rolling the dice, but it's on gem
On
instead,
Gem
right?
instead of your
Yeah,
boots. Yeah.
yeah. You literally hit again. It's similar to Riptide. You hit like Dromai, you hit Kano, and you're just like stupid doomed. Like you're
Yep.
super doomed, right? You're actually probably not even bad into Priz. I actually don't know about the Prism matchup. I think Prism probably kills him. Even
Mm.
if she just has like Iris package, he just sits there and just tries to kill like one aura and just dies. It's a double
Yeah.
aura.
Yeah.
But like he does well into a lot of other matchups, which is actually quite interesting. Like
Mm-hmm.
his ability to just block out super efficiently, and he has a lot of different kind of tools going with him. Like he has the I think he's running like hold the line now to like try to counter Blood Rush and like those big turns like the Art of War, Blood Rush, Tome, anything you draw 2 cards, like you can hold the line, block for 5. You have Steel Street Enforcers, I think blocks for 5 too if you have
Right.
like a bunch of equipment. You remember these cards?
Oh, it's coming back to me. Yeah.
You've got a bunch of like 4 or 5 block dirty cards, and then like you
Mm-hmm.
can get to if you can get to like singularity like within the first half of your deck, you're just like chilling.
Right.
Like it's kind of like insane, right? And you
Yeah.
have oh man, I'm thinking of the card. It's like it's kind of like the
Mm.
Art of War, the mech Art of War. I forgot what it's
The
called. It's
fabricate.
off the top of my head. Fabricate. Yeah, fabricate. You can get insane value off
Yeah.
of. Like you could block a lot of damage, and your armor block, like the blocks are coming off armor, so like it doesn't trigger reprise. It doesn't trigger a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like block with attack action, block with the non-attack, whatever. It doesn't trigger anything really, right? So
That's
unless you're
true.
like assassin with the one that gets +1 off armor blocks, you don't really have anything
Oh
to
yeah.
target. Um,
Yeah.
so that
Okay.
being said, I think
Top of C, I think makes sense. Yeah.
you can squeeze like for the PT. I think you're just like you're gonna roll into like a K Factor 64 or whatever tournament and
Yeah.
just like praying to gem gods. You've got bigger balls than me. But if you really like the deck,
Yeah.
I'd say go for it.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Azuri.
Uzuri, I think she's
Hmm.
C tier.
You think she's C? Yeah. Okay. Probably
Probably
above
C tier.
Teklo though.
Yeah, I don't. I think unless you're literally running uh very, very, very specific lists. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it makes much sense. Like she doesn't have good matchups into Guardian in general. Like I think Victor probably like Victor shits on her.
Hmm.
Bravo's not a good matchup. I think your Dromai matchup. I think there are Azuris that you can fatigue Dromai. It's possible,
Right.
but like you're just as likely to like go to a draw. I think it's just
Mm,
like it's difficult to actually beat Dromai. I can't imagine you're very good into like um
yeah.
Prism or any of those decks. I think the matchups that and like decks with a lot of armor. I think Brute is very difficult.
Brute as well. Yeah.
Um, yeah, Brute's quite difficult. I don't think Warrior is particularly good for you either.
Yeah.
But there are matchups that you can win. However, she didn't get any tools
Hmm.
in the new set, and I think predominantly she was that Lexi counter. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know why you would play Azuri. Like I don't know who in the field you're excited to see. Like do
Right.
I as you see flip door like a lot of these decks are either very difficult to block against. Like if your idea is give you two cards, come in with uh isolate Azuri, come in with a shakedown. That's essentially a 4 card 12. That's just very with an on hit. That's very fair in
Yeah.
my opinion. I think it might be too fair
Mm.
for a meta with like KO just cast bones and just hits you with CNC for 14 go again or something random like that.
Yeah.
And you're just like, all right, well, that's
Yeah.
cool. And then like he has armor too, so you can like so if Azuri has a card in hand and you just isolate and they Scowling Fleshbag and take your card, you
Yeah.
can't even Azuri out the
That's
card because
kind of
Azuri's
funny.
attack reaction, right?
That's funny.
'Cause,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a reaction. Yeah. Yeah.
so you
That's so
literally
funny. Oh my
you
gosh.
literally
Yeah.
like can't do it for one
Devastating.
turn. Fleshbag just intimidated your card,
That's pretty
so
funny.
um you can win matches, but I don't really like your ninja matchups. Probably can be fine, but like what? Like I don't really know why you play the deck at the moment.
Yeah. That's fair. Cool. We got the Rune Blades best for last. S tier all the
They're
way.
you know what's funny? They're both actually sitting in C. I planned all of this. I actually counted. So
Perfect.
both of the rune blades are in C. And
Oh
now we
man.
have an even chart here. No, Viscera is not at the top of that.
No.
I would put him like below Teklo. Yeah, put him there. Put him there.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, I'd put Vincent at the top of C because she actually won some RTNs. So we shouldn't.
Oh, okay.
She won like 3 or 4
I
RTNs or
respect
something.
Vincent a bit more now.
You gotta respect Vincent. God, I wish I could go back to that deck and play it properly. But
Yeah. Wow,
I'm
this is
just an
like
idiot.
this graph is a perfect middle finger. I like
See, that's how I designed it.
it. Yeah.
We'll talk about the Bruin plays. I think Viscera the only viable strategy is OTK Vis, which is very
Hmm.
hilarious to say because it's such a polarizing build to play OTK Vis.
Is that even still a thing?
Yeah,
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 okay.
it's
Huh?
definitely a thing. You play Looming Doom OTK Vis deck,
Oh, that yeah,
um,
okay, okay.
and it's funny. It has matchups where you go to lunch, like you just
Mm-hmm.
concede and go for an early lunch, and then a lot of matchups where you're just like good luck, you can't get through my shit, right?
Right, right.
Uh, it preys on so this is like the setup control, similar to Teklo, so not similar to Teklo and Max. So those decks that cannot put a bunch of pressure onto you and break through your defenses.
Yeah.
But then if you see Reinar, you're doomed, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like the ones that just like take away your power to block and set up.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, very very awkward, right? Like you could probably do or like Dromai, you're just doomed kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Illusionist, you're not doing well. I think the other version of Viscera is not really being played, like the more mid-rangey aggro
Yeah.
deck with not Rosetta. It's not gonna be super popular. I think if you see a Vis, I'd probably hedge towards OTK Vis if I was playing
Good to know.
into a Vis in that scenario. Watch everyone just like, it wasn't OTK Vis. I'm like, well, if
I
you're playing
lost
the
because
PT
of
and
you.
watching this, and you're not playing a hero because you love that hero, that's not my fault. Um,
Yeah.
Vincent's interesting. I think she has a more flexible game plan. I think you could like build the wall, the Great Wall of Rune Chance,
Mm.
and try for a more defensive build and play with like reduce and stuff like that, and set
Mm.
up like block with 3 cards,
Yeah.
banish a card, get a chant, come in for 9, right off like a widespread destruction, three
Yep.
chants and 6, right? You could play that kind of game style to try to value. Um, I think you get fatigued out because you have to keep banishing cards, and eventually you just
Right.
start missing or banishing not good cards.
Yeah.
Um, like getting the root chant for a card is just not worth it. So against decks like Victor, you might have a problem, and like decks that just have enough blues to like ignore your damage. Because generally it'll be like, oh, if you've done an arcane, if you've done a damage, or done an arcane or whatever, it'll the activate like destroy widespread will proc kind of thing. You know what I mean? So if you're able to like adequately block against those, you are in trouble of getting
Yep,
fatigued,
makes sense.
and that's an issue.
Yeah,
So, but I think she clearly has been winning. Saw a couple events
mhm.
here or there.
It's
So
it's
no,
funny
so
how we're in a world now where Vincent is the best Runeblade in the meta.
because Rosetta's gone and she never really played
Yeah,
Rosetta, so it's
that's
just
that's
like,
true. That's a good point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Her power didn't
um,
hinge on that
yeah, she played Flail, right? She
one
played
for
Whale
four.
Flail.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because that was me crying as I was playing the stupid Flail. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I think out of all of this, Betsy needs a weapon. Like that's the one thing I'm looking at the bottom here. Like if give her a
Yeah.
tree or something. I don't know, man.
A tree. Yeah.
Anything we want to move?
I think this is perfect. I'm
Perfect
kind of.
incorrect.
I mean, I love the curve. I think maybe Bolton. I don't know
Love
about. I
I
don't know.
love the curvature.
Real charts have curves. I I don't know about Bolton. Are you sure he's up here? Is he that good?
Whoa, my man is disrespecting Bolton.
I know
Everyone
he's
flame
good.
the chat.
I'm just
Everyone
like,
flame Rob in the comments.
I mean, I don't have a gripe with it. I just like, I guess I haven't seen enough Bolton gameplay to really like be on the Bolton train. But
Realistically, the only change I think we can make is swapping uh Bolton to B tier and Kasai to A tier.
mm-hmm,
So let's move them around. Let's move
sure,
Bolton
let's
top
do
of.
that.
I think
Bolton
he's top
top.
eight. Yeah, because I think his like his Droma matchup's good. His Guardian matchup is good.
Mm-hmm,
Um, he can have he could have like decent matchups into like a lot of these AS tier decks. Like I think that's pretty reasonable. I think all the warriors are quite good. Realistically, I could probably shove Bolton in A next to Kasai, but as far as the graph goes, let's just keep him in B for now.
yeah, okay, I like
Um,
this better. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Gotta give
like he can
Kasai
have
some more
sometimes.
respect.
Sure, like yeah, she's won a decent amount, so we can give her some respect, and she's top aided and done fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Kasai is gonna like run to Dromais and Kanos and be super sad. So we'll kind of see
Yeah,
how that ends up going if she can kind of feast. Like Kasai is definitely one of those decks where like Gem could absolutely screw you and give
yeah,
you a shit ton of Dromais, and you're
yep.
just like, okay, well, I'm in the depths of hell now, and then just give you all like the Katsus and stuff next. I was like, okay, well, this is not great, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can
That
still
that could
win.
happen.
But yeah,
Cool. I'm happy
um,
with this. I like it.
yeah, I'm happy with it too. I don't think there's like too much else to say about this, but if you like this kind of content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you disagree with us, agree with us, or somewhere in between, feel free to comment on if there's a particular hero you think we did dirty,
We did
which we
dirty.
usually
Yeah.
do. We usually do.
If you're a Betsy
And
Stan or sorry.
if you're a Betsy stan, tell me all about why Betsy's not D tier. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
And with that, from where you're watching the world, have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Bye for now.